of PPR in sheep and goat in all the local government of Plateau State, and also to characterize the distribution of PPR in sheep and goat population across Plateau State, and finally to identify the potential risk factors associated with pestis despotitis ruminants in sheep and goats in Plateau State. Now, in order to achieve that, using 25% prevalence at 5% confidence interval, we use geographical information system to come up with 200 EP units, which are the villages. And out of these two, the idea was to distribute them evenly. And based on the information we got from the Department of Veterinary Services, Plateau State, on the population of sheep and goats in all the local government, we now distributed these 200 villages based on the population of sheep and goats in all the local governments. Also, out of these 200 villages that we come up with, 100 villages were along randomly selected along the roadsides, and they were paired with the ones located remotely. At the same 25% prevalence, just like I said earlier, some villages were given 10, some local governments were 10 villages were selected, while others was 15, depending on the population of sheep and goats. And in each village we visited, we collected samples from 2 different herds, 5 animals from a herd, a different herd at the other. To explain it more, it means we collected 10 animals from each village, and the criteria for collection of sample from these animals, the animals were more than 3 months of age and not vaccinated. And for the older ones, even when introduced, we make sure that those animals were introduced about more than a year ago. Stability and true reflection of the status of the animal per herd. And we also make sure that we mix randomly between species in each village, as well as sex differentiation. We went ahead to the samples we collected. We used ELISA, that's competitive ELISA, to test for the positivity of PPR, and percentage inhibition of less than 50 was considered positive, while doubtful and anything greater than 50% was considered negative. And we also categorize village to be positive if at least 1 animal was found positive. And we statistically use R to describe, which I'm going to discuss it, describe the whole results. We use chi-square to actually check to compare observed results with expected results, and Fisher exact test to be able to know the proportion of variables and different depending on the value of the other variable. And we also use a mixed model with nested random effects on local government and villages to be able to know the probability or the proportion of infectivity, or the relation between the age as well as at the village, related to village and species, and across all the local governments in the state. So at the end of the day, we visited 200 villages across all the 17 local government, and most of the visitation were around November and December of 2021. Like I said earlier, 10 to 15 villages were visited per local government, depending on the proportion and population of small ruminants. And all, except about 5 villages, all the others were 10 animals were sampled. So out of the visitation of the 200 villages, 1,988 animals were sampled. And out of this, goats were 1,228, which is 62%, compared to sheep, that is 38%. And females were more, about 2 to 3 times the number of males that were sampled. Just like I said, it was random. and about 28% of the whole sample were young, followed by the old 22%, and the list was the lamb, the younger ones. So we also discovered that in Plateau State, the predominant species of goats that is predominant in the state was West African dwarf with 44%, having the population almost as twice or three times as Red Sokoto and Kano Brown in the state. While for sheep, Young Kasa was the highest, is said to be the highest breed in Plateau State, with Balami and Uda being the least among the species that were discovered. So now the prevalence of positive village at 95%, 5% confidence interval, we found out that the prevalence across local government was 85.5%. This is one of the highest prevalence that is seen in recent time, even though there are researches that mention similar percentages, but in Plateau State, this is the highest percentage of prevalence. And if you look at the bar chart that is here, these dark lines is indicating the number of negatives. In case of Justice, Pampan, and Wase local government, all the animals that were sampled were found to be positive of PPR, while in Panching and other local government, that these dark lines is indicating the percentage of negatives. And with the map, this is the distribution of positive animals with negative. This red dots indicates the negatives, while the green dots indicates the positive. I know I will ask the question why some of the regions were not visited. It was due to security reasons and accessibility. That was why some regions were not visited. And on the basis of positivity per villages, using this, if you check at the distribution of positive sera using the whiskers, it ranges from 0 to 10 with a median of 4, and only 5 villages with seroprevalence was greater than 70, as I show in the previous slides. Now, in overall prevalence per animal is 38%, and females tend to be more, the prevalence was high in females compared to men, even though it was not significant because 39 and 35. However, prevalence was still more in sheep than in goats. This was also agreed with a lot of researchers, and they attributed this, and we also attributed this due to husbandry system, because in Nigeria or in Plateau State, what we observed was sheep tends to stay more and goats are being consumed. The marketing is very faster. So the fact that they stay longer in the whole farm makes them to be exposed to a lot of risk factors. And also, the prevalence was high in old than in young. This also can be attributed to the fact that the old actually move out as far as their location, just like the previous speaker have said, the type of husbandry system, and as well, the interaction the old have with other herds, and this can be a possible factor that these animals actually come down. This higher prevalence is seen in all. There was a significant difference across local governments. This could be as a result of management system and husbandry system, but there was no significant difference in seroprevalence between vaccinated and non-vaccinated flocks. Now, on the risk factors, highest prevalence seropositivity was seen in sheep than in goats. This I explained, possibly due to the fact that the sheep stays longer. They are only serviced yearly or during festivities, the Salah, while the goods are daily commodities that people consume. And just like I also said in old and in young, then also a higher prevalence in herd with larger size composed of sheep. And also this justifies the fact that they stay long, seroprevalence will be high due to their longevity in the farm. And there was no association between small ruminant population size and location of village and its status. This have drawn us to the following conclusion that in Plateau State, there is wide distribution of PPR in Plateau State, just like it has been discovered by other researchers. However, only few villages, that's 5, with seroprevalence above 70%. This simply means that the fact that the other villages have less than 60% seroprevalence, it means that it is not enough for those village, the 60% to confer immunity to stop the spread and outbreaks. And that is why we still see outbreaks in Plateau State. And there was also higher seroprevalence than what has been found in previous studies. This is so far the highest, just like I mentioned earlier. As a recommendation, this will also come as part of the research participatory survey data to cross-check the status of village with vaccination. When matched, to be able to show a true picture of the vaccination status, and also a mobility data and biological data to support appropriate surveillance should also be done, and baseline data to evaluate the efficacy of future vaccination campaign. So this, the whole of this research will serve as a baseline data, especially considering the OIE FAO bulletin of 2015 on the global eradication strategy for PPR. So I would say that this research will provide a baseline information on the status of PPR in Plateau State. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Adamu, Dr. Adamu, for your presentation. It was quite a great baseline data for Plateau State. So we'll move to the